Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Life of Logan. Let's talk about something that doesn't always feel like a gift at first glance. Self-awareness. It's a mirror that doesn't lie, a light that shines on the patterns we sometimes wish would just stay hidden. But if we're brave enough to face it, self-awareness can be the key that unlocks the doors we didn't even realize were keeping us trapped. Before we get started, I would like to ask you all to please make sure that you are liking the video, and if you have not done so already, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Those two small gestures motivate the hell out of me to continue to make content like this. I appreciate you all. So let's go on ahead and get into it. I had one of those moments recently, one of those self-awareness, a realization that hit me with the weight of years stacking themselves on top of each other. The month that we're in, February. February has always carried a heaviness, a subtle shift in my energy that, while I knew it was there, I wanted to ignore it and feign ignorance. I start off feeling off and then eventually slipping into a fog that I couldn't really explain. It's one of those things where it's hard to put into words, but it was the onset and slow descent into depression. And before I really knew it, because I would try to distract myself and all these other things and fill voids, I was caught in the underthrow, dragged into a cycle that stretched from this month all the way into May, which is my birth month. And that's the thing about self-awareness, because you can't unsee something. And for some time, I didn't really notice or see the pattern. I just thought that it was just the way of life. And realizing and unpacking it, doing a root cause analysis on myself, taking a look back and saying, well, this pops up every year around this time like clockwork. And then you realize that something in you starts unraveling. Now you start to put two and two together. The world outside didn't change, but inside, I was moving in slow motion, struggling to hold on. And actually, this year, I finally drew the line from point A to point B and realized, yeah, that's what it is. You just don't want to acknowledge it. So you all have heard me talk time and time again on here about my grandmother, how she was one of the most important people to me in life, and she passed away back in 2004. And old wounds, you still dealing with them, but again, self-awareness, it's on you to address those. February, in fact, the day today that I am recording this episode, February 23rd, is my grandmother's birthday. She would have been 83 this year. She was more than just family to me. She was warmth, wisdom, and home for me in a lot of ways. The kind of presence that anchored me, whether I realized it at the time or not. And like with most things, when she passed, I thought I had grieved it all out. I thought I had moved through it as best I could and let it settle into memory. But grief is a shapeshifter. It finds new ways to make itself known. And that's where we end up at this point. I've been walking the same path for years as an adult, slipping into autopilot of sorrow that always began in February in a slow descent, so quiet that I It made it easier to ignore. I'll say that. And then by the time I recognized what was going on or opened my eyes, it was usually too late. Depression had already set in, and I was fighting against a tide that I didn't even notice was rising. But again, self-awareness. And once you get tired of it, things in your life, rather, I should say, once you get tired of things in your life taking a toll on you, messing up relationships, not just with other people, but the relationship you have with yourself, yeah, it's on you to make a change. So I decided that this year was going to be different. I saw it, I named it, and that changed everything. Self-awareness doesn't make the pain vanish, but it gives you a choice. It hands you the map you didn't know you needed. And for the first time, I can see where the road leads before I get lost on it. I can recognize the moment where I usually drift, where I let the weight pull me under instead of reaching for something steady. Now I get to ask myself different questions. What do I need in February? What can I give myself so that I don't have to slip into the same cycle? How can I honor my grandmother's memory in a way that brings light instead of a shadow? Self-awareness is a gift, ladies and gentlemen. But it's also a responsibility because, again, once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. You can't pretend you don't know the patterns exist. You have to decide what you're going to do with what you now understand. And again, this year, I'm choosing differently. I won't pretend that February doesn't hold grief for me, but I also won't let it steal my months from me. I won't let autopilot take the wheel. I'm stepping off the well and worn path. I'm making a new one where I move through the sadness instead of getting lost in it. One where I acknowledge the weight without letting it become my identity. If you're listening to this and realize that you have a cycle of your own, one that repeats itself ever so often without your permission, this is your sign to pay attention, to ask yourself the questions that matter. What patterns have you been living without realizing? What seasons pull you under? What, more importantly, now that you know, what will you do with this newfound awareness? And this is the gift. Not an easy one, but a powerful one. The ability to see yourself clearly and to choose something different. So here's to breaking cycles. Here's to walking a different path. And here's to self-awareness. The kind that gives us back our power, one realization at a time. Until next time, take care of yourself and remember, you are not lost. You're learning.